What's up, everybody? So, Season 6 of League of Legends competitive scene starts today, and I thought that that was a good time to go back and revise some of the Runes and Masteries that I had set up during the preseason. Now, normally when I talk about League of Legends theory crafting, I tend to write a blog post, and I tend to take screenshots, post those, break things down, talk about the general strategies and why it is that I picked what I picked, and so on and so forth. This time around I decided that I would do a video with commentary, because not only is that seemingly the preferred medium for most people, but it's also quicker and easier for me to run through this and give my reasoning behind my choices and things of that nature. I'm not the highest elo player. Obviously I'm not a pro, so my opinions here may differ from what the pros would do, but for the average layman, the newbies that are just getting started, the people who aren't super high elo, this will probably at least give you a basis to start your pages off with. Honestly, you really only need a couple rune pages and a couple mastery pages, basically one for AD type champions and one for AP type champions to get yourself started. But for those of you that already have a couple extra rune pages and want to get a little more specific with your builds, I'm sure at this point you already have a couple champions that you like, you have a couple roles that you like, so you can build them more specifically. I've built my pages around the 5 roles, and then added a 6th page just for some added flexibility. So to get things started off, I initially did a post about the mastery changes during preseason 6, and I really didn't have any experience with the masteries up to that point. I also had not changed any of my runes since season 5 at that point, so the builds that I theorized would work well didn't, or were lackluster, or, well, honestly, pretty much if you read guides or if you've been playing the game a lot recently, you'll note that it seems that the only Keystone Mastery that everyone seems to care about is Thunderlords. It is very overpowered at this point in time. It didn't get a nerf despite there being a patch recently, and it seems to be the thing that everybody wants to have. I see people running it on tops, I see them running it on junglers, I see them running it on mids, supports, and AD carries. Personally, I kind of think that's a bitch move. I don't think that just because one thing is overpowered, every role should utilize it, because there are other Keystone Masteries that work better for different roles. Maybe, if that's your thing and you want to just go for what's overpowered, well then build Thunderlords and forget what I'm about to tell you. But if you're one of the people that's like me and think that it is kind of a bitch move to take Thunderlords no matter what lane you're playing in or what role you're playing, here are some different builds and different things that I think work well, and ones that I've been using myself personally. I tend to take a page for each role, so that way, even though with the dynamic queues the way they work now and the new champion select, you're typically going to get one of 2 roles, and usually most people have 1 or 2 roles that they're really good at and everything else they kind of suck at. But still, if you're playing ARAMs or you're playing normals, blind picks or drafts or whatever, and you don't get the role that you want, or say you just decide today I'm going to pick top and fill, you may end up in another role. And so it's good to have a rune page that's designed for that role, just in case. Plus, you never know. You might decide that you want to start playing jungle more often, even though you never played jungle the entire time you've been playing the game. So just having your bases covered seems to be the best strategy. So starting off here, I'm going to jump between a rune page and a mastery page, the two that are working together to give you that overall build for your role. Me personally, I've been playing a lot of top. Top has been where I've had the most success. I think I have turned into a pretty decent top laner. So this is my top rune page. Now I'm going with attack speed, Quints, armor, Seals, attack damage, Marks, and scaling magic resist glyphs. Now, reasoning behind this. The attack speed is great on several different top laners. Even and especially if you're playing carries like Quinn or Ezreal, whichever AD carry that you decide that you want to take top, it's useful. It's also useful on people like Trundle, because he's just going to put out more damage. It's great on champions like Shen, whose passive the cooldown is affected by his attack speed, because each attack lowers the cooldown on his passive by 1 second. So there's several different champions that benefit from having that attack speed. Armor is just always good. Every time you have flat armor, 9 times out of 10 when you're in the top lane, you're facing another champion that's also AD oriented, so armor is going to help protect you. The extra attack damage, or AD marks, those are there just to give you that extra added punch on your attacks. Combined with the attack speed, obviously you're going to do more damage over time. And the magic resist glyphs. Now, I could have taken flat, and I do on several of my other pages, but the reason I decided to take scaling is because you get a bigger bonus towards endgame. And I think it's level 8 where the math balances out to where you've gotten the same amount of magic resist by level 8 that you would at level 1 if you were to take the flats. So typically you're in lane by yourself up to level 8. You're going to be in lane by yourself beyond level 8 most times, unless for some reason your turret's been down or you got their turret down and you're wandering around. For the most part, you're going to be playing in those levels, and you're usually not playing against ability power champions. Now, granted, there are going to be some. I've seen a lot of Teemo in top lane recently, which has been rather annoying, but having a little bit of extra is fine. But the thing is that 9 times out of 10 you are building some sort of a magic resist item. So early on, if you're facing one of those champions, you're going to be building your Merc Treads, and you're going to be building other magic resist items to counter that anyway. This is just going to help you out with a little bit extra towards late game when you're actually in those team fights. I think it works better. That's up to you. You can use the flat, but this is going to cover you. Now, to coincide with that is the top lane mastery page. In this particular build, I found this to work better than Thunderlords. Even though I've gone up against lots of people that are using Thunderlords in top lane, I prefer the 0-12-18 build. The Keystone Master I'm going for is Grasp of the Undying, because every 4 seconds you get back 3% of your max health as long as you hit a champion. In fights, this is ridiculously overpowered. I mean, I have had fights come down to the point where they needed one last hit on me to kill me. I get that hit, get the 3% back, and that's enough to change the tide. And then, to top it off, your next best part of this mastery tree is Dangerous Game. As soon as you kill them, you get 5% of your missing health and mana back. So if you get ganked by the jungler while you're in top lane, you're having that 1v1 duel, this manages to proc, and you get a little bit of health back, enough to kill that guy. Then you get more health back because of this Dangerous Game, and you might have enough health left over at that point to take on the jungler. I have had 2v1 top lane fights go in my favor just because of those two masteries. Otherwise, you have some extra damage to the minions in lane, which helps with last hitting. I take the biscuits because the little bit of extra health and mana that you get out of it works pretty well. It helps with your sustain. 5% increased damage to champions below 40 health. That's a given just because you're usually 1v1ing, and sometimes when you're the one that or when they get below a certain percentage of health, it helps. And then just some tanky stats, health regen per 5, take less damage from champion attacks, extra health, more health regen, and this is for later on when you're in team fights. You get the extra 3 armor and magic resist for each nearby champion. So overall, between the masteries and runes, you're getting quite a bit of extra armor, some extra magic resist, you're getting some extra AD from the runes, you're getting lots of extra sustain here. And that's really what a top laner needs. You need to be able to sustain so you can stay in lane and farm. You need to be able to sustain so that you can come back from those ganks that go wrong, where you have to burn your flash and sit under tower and just hope that they don't dive super hard. And it just works. And that is what I found has worked the best. And I have been using these pages here in conjunction with Trundle and Shen even, and it's worked very well. Now, if you're in the jungle, this is how I have set up jungle. I don't really play jungle much, admittedly, so it's not something that I have a lot of experience with. I did play jungle a lot more back in Season 2, Season 3, but I kind of strayed away from that role, and I haven't done a whole lot of it. But I have done some here and there, and typically, if I'm running jungle, I usually go with either Hecarim or other champions like Hecarim, high mobility, AD focused. But when it comes to jungling, having some extra movement speed, to me, makes a huge difference. That's why I run movement speed Quince. Especially on Hecarim, because his passive gives you extra AD based on his movement speed. So it helps with clear time, and it helps you run around the jungle faster, get to the other side of the map faster. It just seems to work really well. And I think most junglers could benefit from this, although I'm assuming that there are, some that would benefit less, because, you might want AP instead or something like that. So you also have the attack damage marks for extra clear to help with your clear time. Have some armor, but I also split it with scaling health, because just extra tank stats, extra health will help you in the jungle, but will also help you when ganking and later on in team fights. And then flat magic resist, so you get a little mix of tank stats, a little bit of damage, and a little bit of movement speed. Mastery wise, I tried to maximize the effects of those runes, so I go 6, 6, 18. Keystone, this one I just recently changed. I'm not sure if this is going to work really well, but in theory, it sounds good. Because of this mastery, each time you kill a large monster, which you're going to be killing a lot of those, you get extra health. Now, it's only 300 max health, but 300 health can go a long way. And later on, those kills will get you 6% of your maximum health back. So once you've hit the max, you're going to end up being able to just run into jungle, kill a big monster, and get a nice chunk of health back, which might help you in the event that you're farming and you're low health, or you just came off of a battle and you're low health. You run over, you re up a little bit, and you can run right back into a lane to help push it out, or run right back to the battle if need be. So in theory, it seems like it would work. I also take the other same health stats and tank stats that I talked about before, but I split this 6-6 here because the extra attack speed helps for your jungle clear. Killing a unit, 20 health back, that also helps with your sustain in the jungle. Obviously, taking the runic affinity is good for when you do steal red or blue, or are using it early game. And then the extra damage to minions and monsters helps with your clear time as well. So in theory, I think this would work very well. I haven't really used it in practice, though. Moving on to the mid lane. Mid lane, I made some changes to this rune page only because I used to run mana regen seals, and I found that was good because I tend to be a spammy mid laner. But that was kind of just the way it was previously. I've sort of learned how to not be so spammy and not drain my mana quite so fast. So now I think that having the scaling health, you could also swap that out for armor, but in fact I would probably swap it out for armor if you're facing a lot of assassins, but if not, I think having the extra health is worthwhile, because most of the items that you're building as a mage in the mid lane aren't going to provide health. They're going to provide AP, they're going to provide armor, they might provide magic resist, but they're probably not going to provide health. So getting an extra 216 health by level 18 is helpful. I mean, it's not a lot, but it could mean the difference between life and death. Otherwise, we're running AP quints, AP per level glyphs, and magic pen marks. Moving on to the masteries. I'm running Thunderlords on this particular one. And I called this at the beginning of preseason that was going to be the mid laner's, keystone of choice. And apparently it's the keystone of choice for pretty much everyone. But, if you're like me and you only think it's useful in certain roles, this is one of them. Going down the tree, you're going to get your biscuits, you're going to get some magic magic regen, you're going to get dangerous game because that's going to be helpful, you're going to get some extra magic pen, and then Thunderlords, of course, which is ridiculous. And then the ferocity tree, you're going to get some extra ability power, take feast, get some spell vamp, and get oppressor, because 9 times out of 10 as a control mage, you're able to slow, stun, root, etc. on your own. So you're going to do extra damage to those people. With someone like Lux, 1 Q gives you 2.5% increased damage. And that, on top of the rest of your full combo, including your ult, it's going to do some nice damage. You're going to kill him. And you're going to get a Thunderlord's proc on top of it. It just makes sense. And it works pretty well. Moving on to the bot lane. This is going to be your AD carry page, and it is exactly the same as the top page, but instead of having the scaling MR, I went with flat MR. The reason being is because 9 times out of 10, the enemy support is going to be AP based, and they're going to try and chunk you down as much as possible. They're always going to be harassing you. Having the extra magic resist is going to be helpful. Otherwise, you still have the attack damage marks, armor seals for, defense against the enemy AD carry, and the attack speed. The mastery page to go along with that, it's going to be 18-12-0. Now, I can see why people use Thunderlords just because of the extra little bits of burst damage it's going to give you later on. But honestly, beyond early game, it doesn't do a whole lot. And I think that because almost every ADC is going to have some crit, getting heals on every crit is, every 4 seconds. Sorry, every 2 seconds. So getting a heal on every one of your crits every 2 seconds is just gonna be better for you. You can kite with it and keep your health up. As long as your positioning is good, it's always going to keep you healed. It's going to keep you topped off in conjunction with lifesteal items. You're not going to die. And I just think it's better. Otherwise, you're going to be taking attack speed, feast, get some lifesteal, oppressor, extra armor pen, and then of course the Warlord's Bloodlust. On the cunning tree, extra damage to minions. I take biscuits. 5% increased damage to champions under 40% health, and dangerous game, which also gets you some extra healing during team fights. For support, I'm running a pretty convoluted page, but I think that it all balances out and works out well with the mastery page that I've built. You're taking ability power quints, gives you some extra poke potential early game. Taking hybrid penetration marks. The reason for this is that, say you're playing Morgana or Sona, champions of that nature that have ability power scaling abilities, but also are going to be poking with their auto attacks in lane. The armor pen, which it equals out to 8 armor pen, it's going to help you with all those basic attacks. The 5 magic pen is going to help you when you're hitting your Qs and other abilities. So I think it works out the best. There's people that would probably argue with that, but I think that works out very well. Armor seals, just to avoid dying to your ADC, the enemy ADC too much. I take some scaling AP glyphs as well because it helps stack with the quints, but also by end game you've gotten an extra 30 ability power just from these. And as a champion that's a support, you're not really building too much in the way of AP, so every little bit helps. It helps you with your abilities and whatnot. And then I take a few flat magic resist glyphs as well, just to give some extra protection against the poke from the enemy support and or mids that are roaming down and things like that. For the masteries, I'm taking 0, 18, 12. Now initially, when I wrote about this in preseason 6, I was recommending taking Windspeaker's Blessing because heals and shields are 10% stronger, and each time you do one on an ally, it gives them bonus armor, which if you're Sona or Janna or someone who's giving shields or heals to your ADC, giving them extra shields and heals sounds great, right? Well, with the way the meta's played out, again, everyone seems to be running Thunderlords. It does seem to be very viable on a support because of the fact that you are doing a lot of poke harass, and sometimes it's enough to drop them low enough for your ADC to dive and get a kill. It's just, as a support, you don't get a lot of damaging items, you don't do a lot of damage most of the time anyway, so it does help you out, and it seems to make more sense. It makes a lot more sense than running it on, say, Pantheon or Trundle up top, which I see people do, and it annoys the shit out of me. Otherwise, it's pretty much a similar build, but taking movement speed over the minion damage because you aren't going to be doing much damage to them, so the movement speed out of combat is better, especially for roaming. Take Biscuits for the sustain, Meditation for sustain as well, the extra mana regen, which is definitely useful. I also take Bandit just to get the extra gold on hits and stuff, and when they kill minions. Some extra Magic Pen, and Thunderlords, of course. And then health regen, the tough skin, extra health. And I chose, instead of taking the health regen, chose to take the reduced cooldown to summoner spells, because sometimes Flash is one of your major engages. Also, you're going to be using Exhaust or Ignite, and having them up more often is going to be beneficial for you. Finally, one last page that's a full tank page. Now, I use this, it's kind of a flex page. It can be used for a full tank character up in the top lane, when you're not really worried about 1v1 potential, you're not really worried about doing damage, you're just worried about sustain. This could be used on Shen, it could be used on Maokai, it could be used on Sion, Dr. Mundo. Anybody that's just there to absorb damage and cause chaos, but not necessarily trying to get kills. So, when you're running Trundle or Pantheon or Wukong or somebody who's like more in your face and wants to do damage and get kills, I wouldn't run this. But in the case of someone who is just there to be a meat shield, this is the way to go. And this could also be used as a flex page for supports if you're running Braum, Nautilus, other places, other champions that are just focused on taking damage, and that's it. So here we're running health Quince, which gives you 78 health out the gate. We're running armor marks to go in conjunction with 5 armor seals to give you a total of 13 armor. Flat magic resist glyphs that gives you 12 magic resist, and then 4 scaling health seals as well to give you an extra 100 health by the end of the game. I feel that this gives you a good combination of early game sustain, early game tanky stats, but also gives you some scaling into late game as well. In conjunction with the mastery page, I've gone 0, 12, 18, but instead taking Bond of Stone, which gives 4% flat damage reduction, period, but then also takes 6% of the damage from the nearest enemy. From whichever ally that you have nearest to you, you take 6% of their damage, basically. So it kind of helps you disperse damage to you, and you become even more of a meat shield. And I think that this works better in conjunction with that rune page than it would, say, a rune page that had damage and other things mixed in, because of the fact that you have got tons of health and tons of armor and some magic resist to help sustain through those big, long team fights. Otherwise, it's still pretty much the same with the health regen and health stats, but then you also get the 3 bonus armor and magic resist for each nearby enemy champion. So makes you a definite meat wall. And then the 12 points is the same that I've used pretty much elsewhere, and having the dangerous game for some extra sustain during team fights when you get kills. So yeah, that is what I have done to change things around now that Season 6 has officially started and I've had some practice with the Masteries. Again, if you have questions or comments, go ahead and feel free to leave those below. I appreciate likes and subscribes. I am still trying to build the channel, so give me your likes and subscribes. Give me your energy. I appreciate it all. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time.